Well, how about we talk about film gimmicks? Gimmicks used to get people into the theater to see films. And they had all kinds of gimmicks, but we're going to focus on this one here because I'm not going to deframe this shit just to do this. But here is the mark of the devil, the one who basically we can't get too close to this little green thing, but we'll try to get close to the little green thing because it basically tells you that you need a vomit bag to get in here. So they were giving out vomit bags with the price of a ticket. Now, if we segue over to here, you'll see, got to adjust the whatever here. These are two framed press books. Now, here's the gimmick for this one. Blood-splattered bride and I dismember mama, with the ever-popular upchuck cup that goes for about $50 if you can find one now. And this other one where Orgy of the Living Dead, where, you could be confined to a mental institution for the remainder of your life if that's what this film would do to you. Okay, so we're talking the wonderful world of film gimmicks, and for this I have on a pair of 3D glasses, and if I can turn my head it might say Friday the 13th part 3, I'll go like that, Friday the 13th part whatever, dog wants to get into the act. But yeah, going back to the year of my birth, 1952, 3D was the first real film gimmick that came out with Moana Devil in 1952. Then, it sort of escalated from there. Everybody wanted to do the 3D thing. So the big one was House of Wax with Vincent Price. That was 3D in full color. And of course they had a bunch of different scenarios. A guy playing the paddle ball out in front of the theater. Pretty much, ball would go in your face. Revenge of the Creature was another one that was shot in 3D. And of course you need these shitty glasses. That's why I'm wearing them. 3D was also used in a couple of, the king of the gimmicks was William Castle, and of course he used 3D in 13 Ghosts, where basically the thing was you had to put on the 3D viewer to see when the ghost came. And you also had a Canadian film called The Mask, which was actually pretty weird and creepy and doesn't really have a great reputation, but it's definitely worth a look. And what they would do is when you're going to see something really creepy and fucked up, a voice would yell out, put the mask on, which would be the clue to put on the 3D glasses. So, that all was going on. And of course, somebody had to get into it with the stewardesses in 3D, which featured a bunch of big pointy tits and a ride through the funhouse with the devil shooting the pitchfork in your face. And leave it to the porn people to get involved in 3D, because there was a film, I believe was called Hard Candy, starring John Holmes. Now, the last thing I need to see in a 3D movie is a guy with a 13-inch cock. Don't need to see that. But for whatever reason, the 3D held on, and like I said, you had to use these stupid fucking glasses, to get the effect. They held on, like I said, with Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D, Parasite, Andy Warhol's Frankenstein in 3D, where basically you had bats flying in your face, guts hanging in your face, blood spurting in your face, whatever. Strange times, but I even think they still tried to do it a couple of years ago with the remake of Fright Night. But, like I said, the promotional handout gimmicks, they were the best. I mean, here's the aforementioned Mark of the Devil vomit bag that was handed out in case you puked. That was one of the first ones. It stayed around for other films like Twitch of the Death Nerve, a.k.a. Bay of Blood. Couple other ones. And when they did Blitzkrieg, Escape from Stalag 69, with the DVD, you were also courteously given their own version of the vomit bag. But the vomit bags weren't the only thing that was handed out. Like I said, for, the other one there, the Blood-Spattered Bride and I Dismember Mama, the Upchuck Cup, which was a small container, which I said is going for about $50 these days. But there was a lot of other gimmicks they came up with, like, weird type things, and William Castle would be, one of the forerunners of this, because with House on Haunted Hill, he created this thing called Emergo, which basically at a key moment in the film, an inflatable skeleton would go on a pulley over the theater goers, many which were small children armed with slingshots. So they basically knocked that out. He also came up with one, I think it was, might have been for Homicidal, called The Coward's Corner, where he had these cardboard mock-ups of a Coward's Corner shipped to the theaters, and if you couldn't take what was going on in Homicidal, you could go out and stand in the Coward's Corner and get your money back. That was a couple things. There was a film shot, I believe, I'm going to say around 66, called Chamber of Horrors. And their gimmick was the fear flasher and the horror horn. Now, when you say fear flasher, you probably thought a guy running down the middle of the aisle with a raincoat going like this. No, they had a flashing on the screen, and they had this horn honk when something horrible was about to happen. The only thing really horrible about the film was the fact that it was released in the first place, because it was a TV pilot that was deemed too rough for that era of TV, so they made it a theatrical feature. So that was that one. There was a Hammer double bill of, I believe it was Plague of the Zombies and Dracula is Risen from the Grave, and they gave out Vampire Fangs and Zombie Eyes. Of course, Independent International, another company known for a lot of ballyhoo and gimmicks, decided to take it a step further with Brides of Blood, when they gave out these cheap plastic wedding rings to patrons. The follow-up film, Mad Doctor of Blood Island, they really took it a step further, because you were giving this green liquid and you had to drink the green elixir to avoid being turned into a green-blooded monster. And of course you had to recite the oath of the green blood, which I am not about to fucking do right now. So, and the green, elixir was basically sugar water with green food dye, and odds are you probably puked after you drank it. The third film in the series was Beast of Blood, and that had a whole different slant, because don't forget, we didn't have the internet back then. What we had was called radio spots, and I can remember this because where I was working, they had an FM radio playing constantly, and every once in a while it would be interrupted. The third patient has died in the head transplant. Go see The Beast of Blood now at a theater near you. Stuff like that. They also, what they did was they had fake $10 bills printed up and folded and dropped all over major cities, where you picked them up, opened them up, and it had a picture of the beast head on the $10 bill with saying, $10 worth of thrills, go see The Beast of Blood. So that was another one. When they released The Big Gun Down, Columbia Pictures had mistakenly identified Lee Van Cleef as the Ugly from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So their catchphrase was, Mr. Ugly's back in town, and they were going to have a Mr. Ugly look-alike contest at certain theaters. So, yeah, there was all this crazy shit in just the way they promoted things, and of course, when you went down, like I said, 42nd Street, they had huge plywood, mock-ups of what was going on inside the theater, like, the infamous one is Make Them Die Slowly with, bloody severed heads, mutilated bodies, and cannibals and shit like that all over the place. It was an art form, that type of thing. There was all kinds of like little weird gimmicks, but this was how they promoted a film back in the day. Like I said, there was no internet, there was no, saturation of TV ads, because a lot of this stuff was a little bit more, shall we say, risque for TV. But, producers and distributors came up with these really cool little gimmicks that, survived the test of time, for, lack of better words. And, they're all collectible now, like I said, the vomit bag, all this other stuff. So, that's pretty much how they sold the film back in those days. Like I said, we lack that in today's promoting, because, there was other little things they did. For example, really taking it to a different level was what Terry Levine did with Dr. Butcher, M.D., where he basically got the Gore Gazette editor Rick Sullivan to create an operating room on a flatbed truck complete with mutilated corpses, blood-splattered nurses, and drive around Manhattan with this thing going until, they eventually got arrested and Terry would bail them out and they'd start all over again. So that, of course, like I said many times, was, inspired by him seeing the business that Make Them Die Slowly was doing at the Liberty Theater, which was right across the street from his office, over, I believe, the Selwyn. So these guys were ingenious, and they came up with a lot of ways to get people into theaters to see their stuff. So that's our little segment on gimmicks in films today. So we'll be back with something else. Until then, stay safe and mask up.